Good morning, or whatever time of day it is for you, and welcome to Philosophy Live. I'm Graham Blackbourn from the Scottish branch of the School of Philosophy and Economic Science in Edinburgh. Thank you for joining me. I have a soft spot for one of the earliest Greek philosophers, Heraclitus. Heraclitus was one of the so-called pre-Socratic philosophers, a group who predated, or in several cases were contemporaries of, the 5th century BC Socrates, and who were not obviously influenced by the philosophy of Socrates or of those who came after him. Heraclitus didn't make his philosophy easy for us to understand. He framed much of it in a series of what sound like riddles or puzzling oracular statements. He wrote these in a book which was widely known during ancient times, and it's said that he deposited a copy in the temple of Artemis in his native Ephesus, in what is now Western Turkey. However, the book has not survived, and all we have is a collection of around 130 short fragments, saved because they were quoted more or less reliably by a variety of ancient authors, from Plato to that Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius. One gets a sense that Heraclitus wasn't an easy man to get on with, and although there's little known for certain about his life, let's just put up a characterization of him. Of course, no one really knows what he looks like. Although there is little known for certain about his life, he was born in about 540 BC, and according to one report, he was the king of Ephesus, although by this time kingship was essentially an honorary title with no real authority. In any case, if he had that title, he'd passed it on to his younger brother. Heraclitus was very rude about the intelligence of his fellow Ephesians, writing that only one man in 10,000 had any worth. There's no mention of what he thought about women. It's reported that in the end he gave up on his fellow Greeks and went to live in the hills, dying probably in about 480 BC. That is about the time that Socrates was born in Athens. But the fact is that almost nothing is really known about his life, although he was certainly unfairly maligned by some of those who came after him. The remaining fragments of his writings cover a diverse range of topics, including ethics, law, politics, religion, and the nature of the soul. As one of the very first philosophers, he had to invent a vocabulary, often by taking words which in the Greek language of the time had a mundane, everyday sense, and giving them a new, more profound philosophical meaning. So far as we know, he was the first person to use the term cosmos to mean the universe. He greatly expanded the meaning of the Greek word psyche, meaning soul, appearing in English in words like psychology. He may indeed have invented the term philosophy, although there are other contenders for this title. But one word which Heraclitus certainly gave a new philosophical meaning to was the Greek word logos. Until Heraclitus, logos simply meant something spoken, such as a story or an account of some kind. Heraclitus used the same word to refer to what he saw as a universal divine intelligence, which underlies everything and is spread upon the face of the cosmos, as it were. If we're sufficiently awake, he seemed to suggest, we could listen to it or read it like an open book. For those of us who know the Bible, it was this logos which, 6 centuries later, the Gospel writer John invoked in his opening sentence. In the beginning was the Word. In the Greek original of the Gospel, this word is the logos, something spoken. Heraclitus, if we read his riddles correctly, was saying to us that the cosmos is an open book, suffused with a divine intelligence, the truths of which are readily revealed if we're awake, and in some sense we understand the language. The truth is known, he implied, through simple, clear observation of the world around us, not through the development of complex theories, which, with the onset of philosophical and analytical thinking in his day, was beginning to be considered the best way to gain knowledge. So Heraclitus was extremely disparaging of a number of his near contemporaries, including revered figures such as Homer, for not seeing the simple truths in front of them. He accused Pythagoras, an older contemporary of his, of constructing his own wisdom through collecting other men's writings, calling it evil trickery. Truth, Heraclitus insisted time and again, was not an individual, personal construction. It was common and open to everyone for those who have eyes to see. But we need to be awake, experiencing for ourselves and not relying on what others tell us. All that can be seen, heard, experienced, these are what I prefer, he wrote. And he added, we ought not to act and speak like people asleep. Heraclitus suffered, it seemed, through being misrepresented and misquoted by later authors, including even Plato. For example, in his dialogue Cratylus, Plato's character Socrates says, Heraclitus is supposed to say that all things are in motion and nothing at rest. He compares them to a stream of a river and says that you cannot go into the same water twice. The idea arose that Heraclitus' teaching was saying that everything is constantly in flux and there is no stability. Pantarrhei is the Greek phrase, everything flows. But scholars tend to agree that Plato was misquoting a statement by Heraclitus, the original version of which has come down to us in the Greek from a different source. Potomoisi toisin autoisin embainusin hetera kai hetera hudata epire. This carefully constructed Greek sentence is ambiguous. Indeed, the later philosopher Aristotle criticized the ambiguity, apparently not recognizing that Heraclitus must have intended it to be so. It can be translated as, on those stepping into rivers, staying the same, other and other waters flow. Part of the ambiguity is that the Greek grammar does not make clear what stays the same, the rivers or those stepping into them. More significantly, what Heraclitus seems to be pointing out is that while the waters are indeed always flowing, the river remains one and the same river. Behind the constant flux of the water is the unchanging unity of a river. A river is only a river because of its flow, yet it also has a single constant unity. It's not clear from this statement whether Heraclitus considers the constantly changing flow, or the sameness, the unity, to be a greater truth. But he does seem to suggest in another of his statements that the answer will become clear if we open ourselves up to the divine intelligence of the Logos, when he says, listening not to me, but to the Logos, it is wise to agree that all things are one. So one of Heraclitus' central themes was that we should wake up and recognize the truth of the cosmos for ourselves, as it is revealed to us in its utter simplicity. Naming some of the most prominent thinkers and writers of the day, he disparaged them all, saying, the learning of many things does not teach understanding. Otherwise, it would have taught Hesiod and Pythagoras, and again Xenophanes and Heraclitus. He was utterly scathing about this new trend towards each of us working out theories about the world in our own mind and trying to explain them to others, which is what came to be known as philosophy. Nonsense, he seemed to say. The truths of the cosmos are staring us in the face. They're not to be found in books or other people's opinions. Don't even listen to me. So Heraclitus' own book comprised largely a collection of riddles, providing no answers, but seemingly intended to encourage us to use our own intelligence, or rather, the divine intelligence of the cosmos, and to discover the truth through our own experience. When we look out into the world, Heraclitus seems to have been telling us, we see one of constant change, perhaps unsettling, like the flow of waters in a river. But if we look with fresh eyes, as it were, we might catch a glimpse of an underlying stability and unity, which contains it all and which remains the same. And we can only discover this for ourselves. So here's how philosophy might help us today. And thank you. Philosophy Live is on every Friday morning during the term at the same time. We hope to see you next week for a new philosophical gem. Thanks again, have a good day, and enjoy your weekend.